Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 27 called Vanessa. So Vanessa lives in California with her wife, Jory. I found her on Instagram and there was this one photo that I believe is from their wedding and it was just spoke volumes to me. I'll ask her if we can post it. But it is such a beautiful photo of her and her wife, and the caption that she wrote is "Love is love. It is such an awful thing to hate." And I just was intrigued with that photo and I started scrolling her page and I was like, who are these people? They're so amazing. And she keeps it really real about parenting. They have 2 toddlers and the kids are gorgeous and super stylish, but her captions are really funny, talking about poop and all the drama that they're going through raising these 2 kids. So I really wanted her to tell her story, how she and Jory had their 2 kids. A lot of the stuff that Vanessa says is so relatable, and I couldn't help but laugh a bunch of times. She's really funny too. So thanks to Vanessa, and without further ado, this is her infertility story. Hi, Vanessa. Thank you for doing this. We don't know each other, but I'm excited to hear your story. I found your Instagram page with you and your wife, and I love the fact that in talking about parenthood, you're very honest and you share stories about, for example, like I think it was both of your kids or maybe your son was finger painting with poop one day. So you talked about that.
No, both of them joined in and it was his poop. Like, oh, it was horrible. It was horrible.
That you mentioned that you wrote the other day that I thought was really great because you were talking about how life with kids isn't easy. And
yeah.
And there's one in the background.
Yeah.
And you talk about sometimes you hide from your toddler while regaining your composure. And I was like, I can totally relate to that. So thanks for sharing your story and tell me about yourself. I know you guys live in California, right?
Yes. So born and raised, my wife and I in California. Mm-hmm. We met in college. We met in pre-calculus. We like to tell this, or I like to tell the story at least. She remembers it differently. I majored in biology pre-med, and so I had to take like all these calculus classes and whatnot. And she walked into one of the classes because she was minoring in bio. And I wouldn't say that it was like love at first sight for me, but I definitely noticed her as soon as she walked in. Mm-hmm. And she just like she looked too cool for me, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling.
And she sat directly in front of me, and I think like halfway through the semester, we still hadn't talked. And then I don't know, we just started talking one day and then we became really good friends. And then friendship led to other stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was 9 years ago almost. And we've been together ever since and married for almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years in October.
Tell me about your wedding.
Oh, it was awesome. It was a compromise wedding for sure. I wanted to have like this big ordeal, and she's like more laid back and casual. It was an amazing wedding. Don't get me wrong. A backyard wedding in Palm Springs. So we rented this awesome house. We had about like 70 friends there and some family. It was just like a backyard party. It was just people got drunk, went swimming. It was a great night.
That sounds awesome. So did you guys know, like when you got together, did you talk about having kids?
We didn't start talking about marriage until we started talking about kids. We felt like it just wasn't on our minds. And then one day we're like, well, we both want to be moms, or she brought it up. Like, she's like, I'm getting older and I want to be like, she didn't want to be an old mom, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so she wanted to, we've read like horror stories about like same-sex couples trying to get pregnant and it taking them years, if not ever, because they're science babies in a sense. So it's unpredictable at times.
Mm-hmm.
So we started trying before we were married, and then for just legality purposes and like if anything would happen, we just felt like it'd be better if we were married.
Mm-hmm.
So then we stopped trying, and then we got married, and then that same month she got pregnant.
Okay. So when you say you started trying, do you mind getting into all the details? Like what did you decide to do in terms of sperm and like all that?
We started looking at sperm banks, and we have this awesome, well, she has this lifelong friend she grew up with that she calls a cousin. Mm-hmm. And they're some of our best friends. And so we were sharing with them that we were looking at sperm banks, and we were so excited. And like a couple weeks later, they're like, well, we wanted to offer our sperm, like her husband's sperm. Mm-hmm. And so then we were kind of shocked because they had just had a baby, and we're like, oh, maybe they're going to ask us to be their like godparents or whatever. But they offered us their sperm, and then we took a little bit to decide because then we'd know them, it'd be a known donor. Mm-hmm. We decided to go with him because if, for health issues, if something came up wrong with the babies, so we decided to go with him.
And so you have access to him in case you need to find out medical background or, stuff like that, right?
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we started trying almost right away. And what that meant for us, we did at-home insemination. Okay. So he'd come over, do his business in like the bathroom, mm-hmm. and then into like a specimen cup. Mm-hmm. I'd take it. And then we'd use just a, like the syringe you use to give babies medicine.
Yes.
Ones that we use that.
Okay.
I'd come into the room and then just insert it.
Wow, that's so cool.
Messy process.
Right.
Yeah, no, and it took we'd track cycles, and we had the period app or the menstrual cycle, I don't know, one of those apps on the iPhone. And so we tracked it. She did start taking like prenatal vitamins and all that sorts of stuff beforehand. Mm-hmm. And so I think we tried 1 month before our wedding, and it didn't work, or a couple months before our wedding. And then we're like, let's just get married first. So we got married. And then 4 days after our wedding, it was like her ovulation date came up. So we're like, well, let's just try. Why not? And that's the month she got pregnant.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So did you guys, just backtracking a little bit, did you always know that she was going to be the gestational carrier?
She carried our son, and then I carried my daughter.
Oh, okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, great.
Yeah. So we just kind of figured at that time when we were deciding, she was a little bit older. She was 2 years older than I am. Mm-hmm. And I kind of had a better job at the time. And so it just made more sense for her to go first.
Okay. So how was her pregnancy?
Awful.
Oh no, really? What happened?
Jory is a very like level-headed, cool, just go with the flow person. I am emotional. Like and her pregnancy was all sorts. She was all sorts of fucked up. We just always say that. It was a mind fuck for her. Like she just so level-headed, and then she got pregnant, and I couldn't leave her alone at times. She was just almost like, I don't know. She just started crying uncontrollably. And it's just like, I didn't know what to do. It was all so new to the both of us. One time I had to take our dog to the vet like late at night because he was throwing up, and she just couldn't stop crying. Mm-hmm. And the dog needed to go to the vet, but I couldn't leave her alone. So I made her get dressed. And she's like 7 months pregnant at this point. I made her get dressed. It's like midnight, and go with me because I was just too afraid to leave her alone.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So hormones and all that.
I think it took her almost a year and a half to kind of go back to her normal self and talk about it. She's like, I'll never get pregnant again.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So then you had your son. Was like the labor and delivery okay?
Yeah. So she got induced and they gave her, I can't remember the name of the drug, to just basically start thinning out the lining of her uterus. And then after that, she just went into labor on her own. She didn't have to get Pitocin or any of the other drugs you get.
Okay.
And then she delivered naturally. She's very afraid of, she didn't want to have a medicated birth.
Okay. So like no drugs or any of that?
Yeah.
Wow.
No drugs. And that first part, yeah, no, she's a warrior.
She's a badass.
She is a badass.
I had 2 scheduled C-sections and I was like, give me all the drugs.
Yeah, no, she was just like too scared. She didn't want to have a bring in new life into the world that was high off drugs. She just, it didn't make sense to her. I think she went into active labor at like 7 a.m. and then he was here by like 9:30. And everything went smooth. He's a little redheaded kid.
Yes, he's so
happy as can be.
And his name is Axel, right?
Yeah, Axel Emerson.
I love it. Okay, can you tell me what happened when you decided to try again?
They're exactly a year and a half apart. So we're nuts. We're just like...
Well, on your Instagram, you're like, we're knee deep in diapers.
We are very neat. Like, I'm starting potty training on Monday.
Oh my God. What method are you going to do?
We're doing the like 3-day method.
Oh yeah, we did that. It works. Do it.
Yeah, that's what everyone says. And so I'm just like, fuck, I can't do it anymore. This poop thing.
Yeah.
And
poop finger painting.
Yeah, no. And I've had so many poop. Everyone's like, why do you always talk about poop? And I was like, I don't know. My children they love it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
It is. It's their thing.
Yeah.
So
we did that method. It's very intense and you're like home for 3 days and you can't go anywhere, but it really does work.
Yeah. So we're just going to knock it out of the park. And she's showing signs that she's kind of ready too. And she's only a year and a half. So we're going to try it out with her. And if it doesn't work out, we'll try again, but he's for sure ready.
Oh my God. If you were able to get like 2 for 1, that would be amazing.
Yes. God, diapers gone forever. Hopefully. I will. We're just basically like, let's just get through the baby stage as fast as possible is essentially what we decided. So we didn't want to have gone through the baby stage of like sleep training and like learning all that, because sleep training was difficult for us, all over again, like get him down and then start again like 2 years later with another one.
Right.
So we said, let's just get him kind of over with. I know that sounds very messed up.
No, I don't think it's messed up. That makes perfect sense.
So I started trying then to get pregnant. Same method.
Same guy. So they're related. They're siblings. That's cool.
He'd come over and same process, drop off sperm. Except that for me, it took me about almost 9 months. So we started trying when he was only like 6 or 7 months or something like that. We're that crazy. But thankfully, the universe, I think, knew that I wasn't like ready to get pregnant, because then we would have for sure died with kids that close in age. That it took me 8 months or 8 cycles. I don't like 8 months of me tracking my period to get pregnant.
Okay. So how did that do a number on you, like mentally, or how did that affect your relationship? Were you feeling defeated?
Well, it was very stressful on me, because I saw how easy it was for my wife. She just got pregnant like right away. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, so all this, I don't know, mental buildup that we had done before about like, oh, it's going to take us forever to get pregnant kind of went away. And I was like, oh, it's going to happen right away. And so it started off like it was a natural progression of me being super happy and hopeful to like shit, this is never going to happen, to like, fuck, I don't want to do it anymore, because it wasn't happening. And I think the moment I said, I don't want to do this anymore, like the letdown, the next month I got pregnant.
Oh, wow.
So, and then my wife also had, cause she's in law enforcement. So she had just started the academy at that point.
Oh, wow.
Or
Cool.
was going to go into the academy. So we were like, you know what? It makes perfect sense. Let's just hold off like a year, because it hadn't happened. She was supposed to start the academy in a couple of months, and then I get pregnant. And then fast forward a couple of months, it's horrible for me because the support wasn't there, because she was preoccupied with like, surviving Hell Week and like all this stuff they put all law enforcement through, that I was basically alone. Okay. So that was also very difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I was alone raising with a toddler, with a baby, and then pregnant. So I kind of just had to do everything by myself through the entire pregnancy. And the first like month of our daughter's life. Okay. So I think that also played a number on me personally.
Yeah, that's a lot to take on for sure.
Yeah.
So how did you cope with that? Did you have like friends that you could rely on, or other people coming around to help, or like how did you get through all that like muck in those months?
I had one friend she kind of saw that I was in need and would come and cook for me or help me clean or just take Axel for a walk. And she also has a son, so it was kind of easy for her to just take him with her. But I think I always joke about wanting a redo pregnancy where she's present. Like she wasn't able to go to any of the checkups, or maybe I think she made one ultrasound, and that was because we did like one of those 3D, 4D ultrasounds. That's the only reason she made it. Like she never was able to go into the doctor's office and do it that way. Okay. So I always joke around wanting a third kid, but only for the pregnancy. I don't want to go through like labor or anything like that again, because it was horrible for me. Labor was also very difficult for me.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
So I had to be induced because she was IUGR, or they thought she was IUGR. So
what does that mean?
I don't know. It means it's basically an intrauterine growth restriction. Like they're not growing in the womb. Okay. And there's a lot of obviously complications could arise with that. The most severe being a stillbirth. So I had to go to the doctor starting in the beginning of my second trimester about 3 to 4 times a week to get monitored. Wow. And scary. Yeah. So it was honest. It was horrible because I was going into the doctor 3-4 times a week with my baby in hand, in tow, because I didn't have a babysitter. And it got to the point where they wanted to induce me like right at 36 or 37 weeks. And I said no. And the doctors, I had multiple doctors pressuring me. And one doctor went as far as telling me, would you rather deliver your baby early and have her spend a couple of days in NICU, or would you rather deliver, or would you rather come home empty-handed because she died?
Oh my God.
And I just start crying. I had Axel with me. I had to wait till Jory got home from work because she's unavailable, and I'm telling her, and she's like angry, and she's angry and also hurt because she knows that like I need her, but she can't be there for me. Yeah. And so she's just like, you're not allowed to go to the doctor alone. Like you need to take like someone with you, like, cause they were pressuring me at this point to get induced. And I didn't want to.
Resistance? Like, why were you so resistant? Just had
my resistance was like, I've read a lot of books and documentaries on like The Business of Being Born. I don't know if you've seen that
I
documentary.
have, yes.
It's a good one, right? Like, and just more into it. And I just felt like, well, if she's not in my head, the way it made sense was like the best place for her to grow is inside of me, not outside of me with machines hooked up to her. So eventually I did give in. I did get induced I decided to just do it because I was done with the pressure. I stopped attending some of my doctor's appointments towards the end. And I know that sounds horrible.
No, it doesn't. I mean, if the doctor's appointments were stressing you out and making it more scary, that could have been worse for the baby. So I get that.
Yeah. So I just stopped going. And then finally I just went to one and I agreed. And at this point I was 39 weeks.
Okay.
Going on 40 weeks. So I was like, okay, so she's more than viable at this point, and she'll like all her lung development is almost fully done. Like, cool, I can do it. So I went into the hospital on a Thursday night. They started we knew the process of induction. We had a birth plan and both of us had a doula present for the birth. So we were very prepared. And my goal too was to have an unmedicated birth. So I went in, we got the initial induction drugs done and nothing was happening. So I was getting minor contractions. I wasn't progressing. And so we went into Friday evening or midday and they're like, here are your options. You can have the balloon done, we can pop your bag, and then ultimately if nothing works, C-section. And my biggest fear was not so much an unmedicated birth like Jory's was. Mine was I didn't want to have a C-section. And so I did the balloon. I don't know if you know what that one is.
I don't, because I didn't have vaginal birth. So yeah, tell everybody.
It's horrible. They put a balloon into your, I don't know, like uterus, essentially at the opening. And they blow it up with like saline or something.
Okay. Does it hurt?
Yes. So it hurts.
Sounds painful. There's a lot going on in there, like down there and like all the pressure, right?
Yes, exactly. And I had to be strapped in at all times. I couldn't walk around or anything. And that was a compromise I did with the doctors because they're like, well, you're IUGR, you have to be monitored. And that wasn't in my birth plan. I just wanted to be able to labor freely and whatnot. So there was just people poking and prodding at me at all times. So they blow up this balloon inside of you.
Oh my God.
And once you've dilated to that amount, you essentially, the balloon comes out.
Okay.
But you have to push the balloon out. And I was able to dilate using that to 4 centimeters. And that was very painful. Like there was a lot of blood and just, it was gory. And it was like I had to take a big poop, but it just, no, it was horrible. And then that still nothing happened. They're like, this usually, gets you started and you'll dilate fully on your own from here. But nothing happened again. And I think I went another half day or day, probably because she didn't come till Saturday night, of just kind of waiting, stuck at 4 centimeters. Nothing was happening. By this point, like I'm exhausted because they have to take my blood pressure like every hour or something. I haven't been able to sleep. Jory's sleeping on like that little futon they give her and it's uncomfortable.
And where's Axel?
Home with our moms that, he's
so
never been away from
son.
him.
Yeah, that's hard.
It was horrible. And so I said, my last 2 options are we pop your bag, or if you're just done, you can go into the surgery. And I said, no. I said, let's pop my bag. And then they popped it 1 second. And then 2 seconds later, I'm like in so much pain.
Oh, wow.
It was the way our doula described it was With natural labor, it's like a slow progression where you slowly get there to like the peak of the pain where your body's had time to adjust and to the pain you're experiencing. And with induction, it's like a light switch, or when they have to pop your bag, you go from feeling no pain and then someone turns on the light switch and you're not able to adapt to the pain.
Oh my God.
So
They make it sounds kind of fun. Like, I'm going to pop your bag.
Yeah.
It's such a misnomer. It's like, no, it's like 0 to 60 and terrible.
Yeah. It was terrible. And I started crying and I was like, I can't do this. Give me all the drugs.
Yep.
I literally said, give me all the drugs. And my doula and Jory are like, no, you can do this. And I was like, no, fuck you. You don't know what I'm going through. Obviously they did. They had both had kids. And I was just being a baby.
Right. In the moment.
Yeah. So I opted for an epidural because then there's the one where they put the medicine into your IV bag. But based on like the research we had done, that does cross the barrier, and so your baby will be a little lethargic in the beginning.
Okay.
So I did epidural, and that in itself was a horrible experience because I couldn't stay still. So the anesthesiologist had to poke me like 2 or 3 times.
Ooh.
And I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want the epidural. Give me the other drugs. Give me the harder drugs. And thankfully, the anesthesiologist was like, no, you can do this. This is what you wanted. I'm only trying to help you kind of get the birth you wanted. And so somehow I managed, and he hooked up the IV and taped it up really well so that it wouldn't come out, or the epidural. And it took about half an hour for the pain meds to kick in. And then they allowed Jory back into the room. And I think I pushed for like 2 hours. And I was having a difficult time pushing because she wasn't like ascending correctly into the birth canal. And then later on, we found out it's because she had the cord wrapped around her neck and it was kind of pulling her back and keeping her back. And so that's why it took so long for me to get her out. And then they were worried I lost too much blood, not too much to get a blood transfusion, but enough where I had to stay like an extra day in the hospital. And I had to get my blood pressure taken, like sitting up, standing up, laying down, like every couple of hours with a newborn. And I'm trying to get like nursing down.
Yes. Oh my God. You went through a lot.
It was difficult. And then I had Jory that she went back to work the next day.
No.
And then I was alone with a baby, a brand new baby, and wannabe toddler.
Oh my God. So has it calmed down with her work? Is she able to be around more now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that was just the phase that she was in, like going through.
Yeah. It was just kind of this
timing. Shitty timing.
It was very shitty timing. And the way I kind of got through it was like, this is only like 6 months of our life, and then it'll be over.
Yeah.
And it took some adjustment afterwards for her, I think, because I did all the newborn care. I did everything. And she kind of felt like she hadn't bonded with Lexa yet. And she worked hard on that. And so now they're not good.
Good. Yeah. Well, all right. So tell me about being 2 mommies. Like, what are some of do you guys get stupid comments from people? I'm always like, what are some of the things that people have said that you're just like, oh my God?
Just one of the biggest thing, people just assume I'm a stay-at-home mom now. So we decided to have me stay home and kind of take care of the kids. And they just assume that I'm in a heterosexual relationship,
Mm.
and they see Axel run up to me and call me mom or mama, because I'm mama and she's mommy.
Okay. Oh, I like
Uh,
that.
they're like, oh wow, like they just, where does he get his red hair from?
Mm-hmm.
Does my husband have red hair? And it's always like this coming out process of me saying, well, my wife's father has red hair and
Mm-hmm.
she carried Axel, so that's, or like, oh, I didn't know that, or just people start acting differently once they hear that I have a wife or that
Mm-hmm.
I have a partner.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, we were hitting it off as potential friends and now you're being like stupid and walking away.
Really?
Yeah. Or we go to the park. Our routine is to go to the park because Axel's like full of energy and that's the only way he can burn it off.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been called the nanny before too. Like, are you the babysitter?
Oh, because he's got red
Because
hair. Yeah.
he's got red hair and I'm
Yeah.
brown and he looks nothing like me.
Yeah.
And then they see him run up to me and like say mommy or mama, and they're like, oh, you're not the you're not the nanny.
Oh, wow. Does that make
Yeah.
you mad or like hurt your feelings? Or
All of
can you
it.
just laugh it off?
I think I'm starting to learn to laugh it off, but it does hurt because I had a lot of insecurities going into parenthood with Axel.
Mm-hmm.
Jory, obviously, she carried him, and so it was an immediate bond for her and
Yeah.
him. And I had to work extra hard on that, and then to work on that bond. I loved him obviously, but it wasn't mutual.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted nothing to do with me. I had to kind of like, when she needed a break, just kind of walk away with him, and he's crying and
Mm-hmm.
wants to be with her, and I'm just like, well, she needs a break and I want to be with you. And he didn't want me at all. We didn't really bond, or he didn't bond with me, actually. I should say it that way, because I loved him from the very beginning. We didn't He didn't actually bond with me up until he was like maybe 13, 14 months,
Wow.
where it's like, now, okay, you're my mom and I love you. But it took him that long to kind of ask for me or reach for me, or
Mhm.
that was very difficult
Yeah.
because I was just like, love me, please. Like,
Right. Right.
it's just, I love you. Why can't you love me back, sort of deal. And
Yes.
so I think that was very difficult for me. Is just like a mental thing, and I had to remind myself, or Jory had to remind me, like, it's not that he doesn't love you, it's just like I have the boobs.
Right.
So
Right.
he's nursing too. So
Yes.
yeah.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that because I think that people, that's part of the reason I'm doing this is because I want people to know all the different stories that people have and all the different challenges. And that's one, the not bonding, I think that's really interesting to mention because that
Yeah.
was probably, I can only imagine how tough that was. And, your wife it sounds like she had a similar situation with Lexa, so
Mhm.
it's interesting to think about that and in creating your family, like all the different challenges that people go through.
Yeah, and we had to work really hard on it, my end and her end, and that's why we baby wear. So we
Yes.
learn
So,
wrapping, slinging, and all that good stuff, so that we wanted them to bond with us. And so we
yeah.
just put Axel in the sling or in the wrap, and I'd go for a walk so that Jory could have a break, and he
Mhm.
just kind of rest on me. And that was like the only way I could get him to just show any affection towards me that
Yeah.
I
That's so
I,
smart.
I obviously needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have any advice for people that might be listening, like same sex couples or people that are maybe on the fence about having kids or aren't sure what to do? Is there anything you learned that you could share with people?
Yeah, if you do at home insemination, track your cycle. That'll go a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Start taking care of your body before actually getting pregnant, because I
Mm-hmm.
think that's one thing I didn't do. I was I was a workaholic prior to staying home with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot, I think, of that stress of work was not letting me get pregnant and I don't know, be mentally ready. And then when it comes to bonding, since that's the thing we struggled with the most, both of us, I am a total advocate for baby wearing.
Mm-hmm.
Or just like that skin to skin contact and just like make yourself available. With Jory, I also had like a difficult time with because I didn't know what she was going through. I'd never experienced motherhood myself.
Mm-hmm.
So stuff she was talking about or would say I couldn't relate to in my mind, just couldn't understand. So there's a learning curve to parenting.
Yeah.
And just be patient. And if you're a same-sex couple, ask for help too.
Mm-hmm.
In general, in parenting, ask for help. And I think that's one thing we didn't do. We didn't ask for help as much as we should have, or I did, since I stayed home with the kids.
Yeah.
And we both, it's isolating.
Right.
It's very isolating. So yeah, get out there, ask for help, make new friends, mom friends, parent friends.
Don't you think Instagram has been huge in that way? Like for me, just starting this podcast and reaching out to people, it's been so awesome. And I've met so many amazing people and everybody just wants to help each other out and be there for each other. So I think that's a great resource too. Yes.
Instagram has opened up. I've actually started hanging out with so there's this page on Instagram called Same-Sex Parents.
Mm-hmm.
And because we have no same-sex couple friends.
Oh, really?
And we live in California. I think just Jory and I, we both grew up religious. It took us a while to get out of the closet. It took us a while to like just admit our feelings for one another. And, that's a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
That we just, I don't know, we always joke around about like us being horrible gay people. But so because we want our children growing up with families that look like ours, I started reaching out to people on Instagram.
Yeah.
And we're hanging out now. And one of them lives like right down the street from me. And I would have never met them if it weren't for this page and Instagram and the community. Like, and they're like, yeah, let's hang out. Let's be friends now. And so, not just in friendships, but also just all the mom support and bringing women up or just parents up. And I've loved that community.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm so happy for you guys and your two amazing, gorgeous kids. And I love your sense of style too and what you guys dress them in. So good. The little bonnets and it's so cute.
Yes.
So I'm so happy I got to meet you. Thank you for taking the time to share your story.
Likewise. Thank you for having me on.
Hey again, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Vanessa's story. I think it all comes back to that caption I told you about at the beginning in the intro. Love is love. And parenting is parenting. And we are all humans. We are all in this together. So no matter what situation you're in, same sex, single parent, intended parent, not sure if you want to have kids, I know that you can find something in her story that relates to you in some way. So I want to thank her again for being so open and honest and cool. And I will talk to you guys again very soon. Thanks. Bye.